Well, one of the most human qualities is the emergence of ritual as a way of coping with these overwhelming emotions of loss, certainly in a circumstance like this. And there are many moments where you're documenting the emergence of a ritual in the course of the removal of either bodies or elements of the building from the site. Certainly the story about the removal of the firefighters. But there's also this last column, which, as you say, will be in the Memorial Museum. It was literally the last of the steel girders that supported the towers to be cut down and removed from the site, but it was removed in an extremely ceremonial, almost funereal procession. Tell me about that.
Well, first of all, legend has it that the last column became the last column because some people, some workers in the site said, hey, why don't we say one of these columns at the end and take it out at the very end? You know, like somebody, some genuine observation by somebody who wasn't an art historian or, you know, a guy said, let's do this for the, you know, for the people. And so it became the column. As the site drew to a close on that last night, they decided to cut it down, and they made an extraordinary preparation for it. First, they literally cut the column down a few days beforehand, and they left just a few edges, because it would have taken 3 hours to do the cut. So they prepped it all, and they just left a few corners. And then the ironworkers came in, and there was a benediction first. There were priests came, and a monk came and blessed the tower. People made the last signings and everything. And then a crane came to, they lashed it in some way. There was a platform was set up where a memorial would be said from it, and then they cut it down. And that day, I came down with a video camera, as well as my other equipment. And when they cut the column down, I managed to be right at the base. And when the column came over like this, and then it was hoisted up and suspended, I ducked underneath the column at the base of it. And I filmed the column coming down. I don't know why I did something stupid like that, you know? It was only 60 tons. Anyway, I've watched this column coming down over my head and then being carried away like something out of 2001, you know? I mean, it was just a vast, powerful thing floating through the air with all the workers coming from the side. And then they laid it down on a platform. And everybody just piled onto it, signing like crazy. And then a truck was brought in. And this truck, they called it the Black Virgin. It was a truck that hadn't been used before. And they backed the truck in, the flatbed trailer, and they had covered it in fabric. And they lifted the beam up onto it, and then men jumped up onto it, and they tucked the fabric in around the column, like hospital corners. Beautiful. I mean, men were doing all of this kind of graceful sort of folding of it. And then a huge wreath was lowered on it. And then it was covered with an American flag. And then it was, you know, sort of driven slowly, not out of the site, but at the north end of the site, waiting for the ceremony the next day when pipers would pipe it out of the site as the last thing, the last body out. It was so beautifully, naturally orchestrated. It hadn't been scripted. It just was done in that way. And it was done with all of the compassion and conviction that human beings bring to an event like this. It had a natural flow.
It sounds to me like whatever the difficulties you first had getting onto the site and getting accepted, over the course of these 9 months of your work there, you did really become part of the team, and what you were doing was recognized as a necessity just like everything else was. Is that so?
Yeah. You know, people knew me by name. They would call out to me and give me things. And bring me over to see something special that they had just uncovered. And I was fortunate that along the way I met a team of detectives, the Arson and Explosion Squad. These men, it was because of them that I was able to do the picture that's on the cover of the book. These men became my guardians. They said to me, anybody that tries to throw you out, you call us, here's our numbers. Because they were there every day for 50 days. Then they left. But when I called them, they would come and get me, no matter who stopped me, whether it was state police or Port Authority police or New York police or FBI or federal agents, whatever. They came and they would get me and bring me and say, we need him, he's with us. And at the end, when they left on the 50th day, and I was now without their protection, I said to them, what's going to happen to me? I don't have you guys to call now. And they said, come with us. And they took me into one police plaza and took me upstairs, and I was photographed and fingerprinted and barcoded and issued a pass, an NYPD laminated badge with the shield on it and everything. And when the man who was taking me around, a little Irish leprechaun of a hunchback of a guy like this, probably in his 70s, I wondered why he was still working. He was great. He took me to a typist, and she was typing up my card, and she said, what do we call him? And this little guy looked up at me and he said, let's call him the mayoral photographer. And so it says on my badge, mayoral photographer. An old locution in a way. And that day, the first day I had that badge, I walked down to the site and I got stopped by two National Guardsmen. They say, no photographs, buddy. And I said, mayoral photographer, right this way. And it was like that for the rest of the time. So I am always in great gratitude to the men of the Arson and Explosion Squad for protecting me.
That's all the time we have for. I've been speaking with Joel Meyerowitz, the award-winning photographer whose work Aftermath, the World Trade Center Archive, documents the 9 months that he spent photographing on the site. On behalf of the National September 11th Memorial Museum, I'm Clifford Chanin.